Pro runners such as Eliud Kipchoge and Alex Yee run hundreds of kilometers every week, but is it possible for an average runner such as myself to do the same? Well, I'm going to be answering that question in today's video because I'll be attempting to run 100 kilometers in a week for the first time ever. Never before have I ran this high amount of mileage in 1 week, but it's important to remember that I have also gradually built up to this number. Over the past 6 months, I've been building my mileage up to where I now sit just below 90 kilometers. So therefore, I've built my mileage to a point where I can attempt to surpass 100 kilometers in 1 week. What I'm trying to get at is that I've already built up a consistent amount of miles, so please do not try this at home if you do not already run quite regularly. Unless you want to get injured, of course. So, with that being said, let's get into day 1. But if you do enjoy this video, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel and comment the highest amount of mileage which you have done in 1 week. Okay, so one thing we need to establish before getting into this video is that if I want to run 1000 kilometers in 1 week, I would need to be averaging just over 14.2 kilometers every day. But I like having a rest day to make sure I get enough recovery and don't get injured. So instead of running 7 days a week, I'll be running 6 days a week, and the number I will need to try and average every day is 16.6667 recurrent kilometers, which means, spoiler alert, I will find this challenge super tough and I will be pushed to my limits, so enjoy. Now, Monday is usually track night hosted by Ipswich Jaffa. Now, whilst that will stay the same, I need to fit in the mileage somewhere, so today is going to be my first double day run of many. I set my alarm for 6 AM where I got up for a nice and easy 5k. Pretty much the point of this run was to fit in some extra mileage where I could. And usually I'm not the biggest fan of early morning runs, force myself straight out of bed onto the streets and running. But this morning my legs generally did feel pretty good. They didn't feel tight like they usually do in the early mornings, and overall I'm very happy with how I felt this morning. And I suppose I wouldn't be saying that as this will be the highest mileage week I have ever done. Throughout this video I will show you many of the ways which I recover, and believe it or not there is more to running to the reason I am now attempting this challenge. The recovery part is just as important as running, so therefore it is vital that you do this as well. So after my run this morning, I had some heat therapy through a hot bath. This is a nice way to loosen the legs after a run and to get the blood flowing to the muscles. It can remove any tightness or soreness, and it gets my legs ready for the track session later today. I also find it pretty important that I always have a coffee after an early morning run. A regulated amount of caffeine can be a good idea because it restores your energy supplies and it makes sure that you don't fall asleep during the day. And with A levels in 7 months time, it is important that I'm always on top of my game at school. Now, I won't show you this every day, but when I go to school, I make the commute on bike, which is approximately 3 kilometers long. Cycling can be good active recovery for runners, and also it is good for the environment, so it is a double win.
6.5 hours later.
Alright guys, so pre-track session meal, and we've got ourselves here some peanut butter on toast. The peanut butter is simple carb, which means it is quick to digest, which means I can quickly get the energy which I need. And also, we've got ourselves some beetroot juice. Trust me guys, if you can digest this, this is a great option to have because it gives you a high efficiency of oxygen. Alright, as this is part 2 to the double day, I will quickly explain why runners could do double days and why it is a good option when you're doing such a high amount of mileage. So double days, it is a good way of getting high amounts of mileage without putting too much strain, too much stress on the body in one run. It means you can split the load and you can get the mileage in with a reduced risk of injury from overtraining. And originally I wasn't the biggest fan of double days, but the higher the mileage you do, the less likely you can avoid it. As you can see from this photo of my shoes, I didn't capture any videos of me running at the track tonight. This is because I didn't want to capture any footage of me running with people in the background who may not want to see their faces on YouTube. But this does allow me to bring up a pretty good point because the shoes which I'm wearing tonight are the Adidas Boston 9 which I got from Vinted. Buying shoes off Vinted is a great way to save some money instead of buying full price, which could set you back hundreds of pounds. The details for the session are now on screen, and as you can see see, it is pretty endurance based with it being a pyramid session. Alright guys, so we are back from the session now, and well, to be honest with you, I did not feel the best tonight because on one straight it was very windy, and when you go around the track you cannot avoid the wind when it is there. And well, during that session I felt like I lost my form and I felt like I slowed down quite a bit in those last few reps, but we did manage to get it done, and I think we've got to try and stay positive because running, it's half physical, half mental, and we've got to try and always maintain the positivity levels as high as possible. But what I'm going to do now after every track session, which I do every week, is some stretching to get the lactic acid out of the legs, some nice and light stretching, and that should delay the effects of DOMS. And if you don't know what DOMS means, it stands for delayed onset of muscle soreness. This morning I was awoken once again at 6 AM by the sound of my alarm, but this time I wasn't going out for a run, but instead I was doing some weight training. For skinny runners such as myself, it is very important to do weight training, and I use 4kg dumbbells, and I've also started to use 6kg kettlebells, and the aim of this is targeting my arms. If you look at any video of me running, it is easy to notice how skinny my arms are, but what is the reason I am doing weight training targeting my arms as a runner? My running form used to be incredibly bad, and whilst it is not perfect, I've made a lot of improvements, and a correlation could be due to the strength of my upper arms. You see, there is a direct correlation between your arm swing and your leg stride, and a poor arm swing could then affect your leg stride. My poor arm swing would basically lead to me waving my arms about, and this would lead to unnecessary energy being wasted. And the result of this is that I would be more likely to fatigue during my race, and I would not be able to maintain the intensity which I was running at. And by doing weight training, improving the strength of my upper arms, this is one way which could help me improve my running form. So therefore I try and make sure I do weight training for approximately 20 minutes at least once every week. Alright guys, so it's Tuesday afternoon, which means it is time for today's run, and well, I was going to do a 16km long run with my friends. It was this Christmas run, but we got cancelled on last night. I won't mention any names, but that means I will no longer be doing that run. In an ideal world, that would mean I would split the run into a double day with a 6km in the morning and 10km in the evening, but I had very late notice, so we have not had time for that, but we're still going to get the mileage in, and instead we're going to do a 16km long run by myself. As I had a session yesterday, this run will be done at a nice and easy pace, looking to be around the 5 minute per kilometre average pace. And for me, long runs are the most important runs when you're doing this mileage, because most people, when they're doing 100km, they're not doing it just for fitness. They have something in mind, and I most certainly do, because the purpose of me doing so much mileage is because in a few months' time, I will be doing the Colchester Half Marathon in March. For some context, this will mean this will be my second ever half marathon, with my first being completed in September at Ipswich, where I did a time of 1 hour 17 minutes. Oh, and actually, that was a very fast time for me. I ran a 10k during that half marathon, so there is a bit of pressure on for the Colchester half marathon, because in an ideal world, I'd like to reduce my time even further with a PB. So therefore, that has led me into uncharted territory, going into the 100km mileage for the first time ever, and hopefully this will boost my aerobic endurance and make my lungs more oxygen efficient. And in a very oversimplified explanation, that will mean that hopefully I can maintain the intensity to a PB pace. And with that being said, I'm going to go get changed because it will be dark very shortly, and I'm going to go out there and do the 16km long run.
6.5 hours later.
Oh my days, midweek long runs, they are not my favourite. I'd much prefer to do that on the Sunday, but we've got that done. I think the worst thing, it is getting out there, because a long day at school, the last thing which you want to do is a 16k long run, but we've got ourselves out there, and once the legs were moving, I generally did feel pretty good. As you can see by the Strava and the splits, the pacing, it was fairly consistent. It wasn't the best, it wasn't the worst. I think you've got to be a half full cup type of guy if you want to succeed in running and take the positives where they are, because overall the average pace just below 5 minutes per kilometre, which is where I said before the run where I wanted to be.
Looking to be around the 5 minute per kilometre average pace.
So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. taking in I was experiencing the DOMs from last night's track session. I am very happy with that. With this being my highest mileage week, I've got to take the pros when they come and try and maintain the positivity levels as high as possible. But to make sure I properly recover, I will now be showing you another method which I use, which is the foam roller. With a clue in its name, the foam roller is a cylinder-shaped object which you use to roll your muscles against the foam. On the screen, I'll do a few actions demonstrating this. So, what is the reason why runners choose to use foam rollers? When you are running, you are putting repetitive stress on the same muscles, e.g. your calves, your quadriceps, your hamstrings. So therefore, it is very important to prioritise recovery for these muscles to reduce the risk of injury. The foam roller helps because it increases the blood flow to muscles, which reduces soreness and tightness after runs. When I use the foam roller, I use it for about 5 to 10 minutes, as well as doing some static stretches before and afterwards. And by using the foam roller, this allows me to get in the high mileage weeks with a reduced risk of injury. Alright guys, so I am whispering quite quietly right now because it is 6 AM and I do not want to wake up the rest of the family. And today, this morning, is a Wednesday and I've chosen for today to be my rest day. You may be wondering, because it's my rest day, why am I up so early? And that is because I'm going to be doing some plyometrics this morning. Just because it is my rest day from running doesn't mean I won't be doing any physical activity whatsoever. So, you may be wondering, what are plyometrics, and a very simple definition would be they are the explosive movements of the muscle in certain exercises. On the screen are a variety of the exercises which are used during my plyometric workout. I complete the plyometric workout for roughly 20 to 25 minutes, and the main purpose of them is to develop speed and power in your leg muscles. And well, because of this, plyometrics are typically associated with short distance sprinters, but they do have advantages for long distance runners as well. One of the main benefits of plyometrics is that it improves power, so you can generate more force on every stride. And speed, it does play an important role for long distance runners because you've got to see it from this perspective. The faster you run, the quicker the time you will run will be. Plyometrics can be particularly beneficial for runners when they've got hilly races where they have a lot of elevation which they need to climb. So if you struggle on the hills and you don't complete plyometrics already, I would recommend trying to implement a weekly workout into your routine.
A few moments later.
Of course, as it is a rest day, this would mean I would do no running today, but I did end up doing quite a bit of walking. I ended up walking 3 kilometers to school, and then I went out with my friends after school and I walked 12 kilometers, which meant in total today I walked 15 kilometers. Now, I would not recommend you to walk that far if you're going for a walk for active recovery, but walking can be a very effective method for active recovery. One reason for this is because walking can help the circulation of blood to muscles, which can reduce stiffness and soreness such as DOMs. And if you remember, that is something which I am currently experiencing. Walking can also help you maintain aerobic activity. It allows you to continue developing your aerobic base on recovery days. Alright guys, so it is Thursday morning, and with the rest day out of the way, that means that we will be doing a run for all of the days for the rest of this week. So this morning will be a nice and easy run. I have 12k which I am planning to do, and the point of these easy runs is to firstly recover the legs, and secondly build an aerobic base. And in my opinion, I really think you shouldn't undervalue the importance of easy runs. In my opinion, I think they can be just as important as the sessions themselves. This morning I'll be heading onto the trails. I'll be running on the trails, the grass surfaces, and the reason why I like running on these softer surfaces for easy runs is because there is less stress on the joints. The harder surfaces like the concrete, there's more impact, which increases the chance of injuries at the joints. So therefore, by increasing the mileage, if you run on the trails, that should reduce the chance of getting an injury in the area like your joints, like your knees, stuff like that. So I think one of the biggest tips which I would give if you're looking to increase your mileage is to run on the trails, and that should reduce the chance of picking up an injury.
6.5 hours later.
Alright guys, so we are back from the run now, and well, there was a lot more puddles than what I expected, and there was a lot more mud than what I thought there would be. And let's just say, my white shoes, well, they're no longer white. But having said that, I felt excellent this morning. The legs, they felt really good. I felt really bouncy. I felt really smooth. And at the pace which I was going at, I felt very comfortable. As you can see from the splits, they are sort of progressive. I did get a bit carried away in that final kilometre, but that just symbolises how good I was feeling this morning. Of course, the rest day does help, but after having 2 runs earlier in the week where I didn't feel the best, it is really good to have the bounce back this morning. And it's also good to have a positive run behind us, because the rest of this week, well, let's just say, things ain't going to be easy. But before we move on to the next run, one thing I'd like to mention is that on my Instagram, I put out polls. So the thumbnail of this video was decided by an Instagram poll. I made 2 good thumbnails, and well, I couldn't decide which one was better. So what I did is, I put an Instagram poll out, and I let the viewers decide. And the thumbnail which got the most votes, well, that is the one which I used for this video. So if you would like to get yourself a bit of power, a bit of influence over the choices which I make, I do that quite often. So head over to my Instagram, Mathel, the same profile as my YouTube, and well, drop me a follow. Alright guys, so I have quite an interesting dilemma. It's Friday morning, which means we have 3 days left to go, and currently I've ran 47 kilometers, which means that we still have 53 kilometers left to run. Therefore, if we were to divide equally the mileage which we have left across the 3 days remaining, we would have 17.6667 kilometers to do on average every day. And well, that is quite a lot to do, so things are about to get tough. And this morning on a Friday, we will be doing a hill session, and the reason why is because the Colchester Half, which I'm training for, I've been told it has a pretty big hill during the course, so therefore we're going to have a lot of time where we train particularly for those hills. Also, in general, hill training is good for building strength and power, and you can generate more force on each stride. So therefore, like the explosive movements which you could do during a hill sprint, that could effectively improve your speed. So yeah, in general, hill training, it can be pretty good for running. And with that being said, I'm going to go out there onto the streets and get this session done. Alright guys, so this session is just completed. I just got back home, put the Strava on the screen, and I'm going to get straight into it. I am very pleased with my effort this morning. This morning, the session, it wasn't an easy one. I mean, hill sessions, they never are. But the session details, what we did, we first of all did 8 hill sprints going up this massive hill. I can show you a few pictures of Google Maps, but it doesn't do justice to just how steep that hill is. Penzance Hill, if you ran up it, you know it's a steep one. So I ran up that 8 times, and I felt really good. I got the fastest ever time I've gone up that hill, which shows you how much of a good effort I put in and how strong I was feeling. I was feeling like I was getting the speed. I was really focusing on my form. Going up hills, you want to change your stride, maybe a bit more smaller steps, and that's what I focused upon. And wow, I am very happy with the first part of the session. After a little bit of recovery, I then moved on to the second part of the session, and this was a sprint going for the Strava segment, 3 minutes and 14 seconds per kilometre average pace. That's what I needed to beat, and we smashed it. 3 minutes on the dot per kilometre average pace, and wow, I felt really strong. And those are the type of segments where I'm usually really close to getting it. I'm normally on the line. Sometimes I get them, sometimes I don't. And this morning, I quite comfortably got that, and I'm very happy to get that segment in the bag. For me, segment crowns, that's what motivates me. You know, it shows that you've put the work in and it's paid off. And you know, if you get quite a few segments, then you can boast, you can show them to your friends. For the third and final part of the session, I then went down to Blackdown Avenue, which was a 500-metre loop. You go up the hill and then you go back down again. So it makes quite good for a session. And what I did 1 times off and then 1 times off. So we went 1 times hard and then 1 times recovery. And overall this morning, I felt really good. I felt really strong, really fast, and we kept consistent, putting in those splits right until the final effort. Now, upon finishing the session, the next thing I need to do, prioritise, is the recovery. and I'm going to show you another method which I think is very effective, and that is the massage gun. On the screen now is a demonstration of what using the massage gun looks like, but basically a massage gun, it tries to mimic what a deep tissue massage does, and it does this by using rapid movements to apply pressure to muscular tissue. It is a handheld device, so runners can use this to target specific areas of the body for muscular recovery. The massage gun helps reduce stiffness and soreness after a run by stimulating blood flow to the muscles, and this helps promote a faster recovery. The massage gun can help reduce the effects of DOMS, and overall it is a good way of preventing injury. Therefore, I would highly recommend you to try and implement the massage gun into your routine, because this is one of the methods which I have used to allow me to now attempt to run 100 kilometers. Well, it has allowed me to increase the mileage safely with a reduced risk of injury.
One eternity later.
Alright guys, so it is Friday evening, and with 35k left to do, I've decided to do something which I have never done before in my running journey. It's shown me this challenge, trying to hit 100 kilometers. It is taking me to places where I have never been before. This evening, I will be heading to the Northgate track to do a session held by Jaffa known as Deltas. That is right guys, I'll be doing a double threshold day.
Huh?
Now, this is something I have never done before, and because I did 17 kilometers this morning, I'm going to try and take the session at a bit of a tempo pace. I'm not going to go flat out because the chances of me burning out if I was to do that would be quite high. So we're going to do the sensible thing and do a tempo effort. But with that being said, I'm going to get myself changed and head over to the track. Alright guys, so we are back from the session. Get the Strava on the screen, and that is 13k done, which means adding up what we did earlier today, I did a whopping 30k today on this double session day. The session which I did was this. We did 2 kilometers on a tempo pace to start with, but as I was feeling really good, I then moved into more of a threshold pace, and then we had a 400 meter recovery, and then we went again, and in total we did 4 reps. And overall today, I felt really good. Taking in, I did a session earlier today. I have never done a double threshold day before, and I felt really good. The legs, they felt smooth, and overall I felt really strong. The splits, looking at them, they were pretty consistent. I was averaging between 320 kilometers at some point, and to do that after doing a session earlier today, I am really buzzing with that. You know, running can be great when things are clicking, and things definitely did click today, and I am just speechless currently with how well I felt. I'll stop waffling now, but today has been an absolute game changer for the mileage, because we are now up to 78k, which means 2 days left, I have 22k left to do, and that is definitely in touching distance. Alright guys, so it is currently Saturday morning, and as you can see behind me, we are at the beach at Felixstowe, and because it is Saturday, it means only one thing. This morning we're doing the Felixstowe parkrun. At Felixstowe parkrun, I've attempted many PB attempts, but that will not be the case this morning, because I'll be doing more of an easy effort, because I am actually pacing someone. There is a main video out on the channel, so check that out after this. But that will mean this morning we're not going flat out, and we're going to do more of an easy effort. One thing which I'll say, with the parkrun being 5k and the warm-up and the cool-down combined, we'll be looking to do between 9 to 10 kilometers this morning.
One eternity later.
Alright, so we are back home with the warm-up, the cool-down and the parkrun. We are now in total at 87.1 kilometers, which means we're in quite a favourable position for tomorrow with only 13 kilometers left to do. But before we get into tomorrow, let me show you my final recovery method which I would recommend for you guys. As you can see from this screenshot, I am currently stretching, but I have some additional support through a resistance band. I would always recommend stretching after a run, and the resistance band can help increase the depth of the stretch. With the assistance of the resistance band, I can go through a greater range of motion, which means I can gain more from the stretch. Running 100 kilometers in 1 week might be one of the most hardest challenges which I have ever attempted on the channel. At the start of this week, I struggled, having a very tough start, but one thing which I will take away from this challenge is to never give up. There is always a light at the end of the tunnel, and there's always a time when things will get better, and that is what I've seen through this challenge. As the days progressed, I felt better and better, and I've had runs where I felt stronger and stronger. There have been times during this week where I thought running 100 kilometers in 7 days would be impossible, but here we are on Sunday with only 13 kilometers left to do. And well, we're ending this week on a high because we're going to do something which was rescheduled earlier, and what I'm talking about is the reindeer run. With the reindeer run complete, that meant I had officially conquered the challenge of running 100 kilometers in 1 week.